Yo and hello everybody. Mike Moynihan here, Bench Clear Media. Welcome to the inaugural episode of Hobby Hotline, a sports card call-in show here on Bench Clear. The show's been going on a number of years on its own channel on YouTube. But we thought, hey, let's get it in front of some more eyeballs. Let's have some fun with it. Let's bring it over to Bench Clear and do the Saturday show here. And so this is meant to be very interactive. I've already put the link into the chat for people that may want to join the show. Feel free to. If you have a camera or don't have a camera, it doesn't matter. You can click on the link and we'd love to talk to you, answer your questions about the hobby and all that good stuff. Let me introduce my compatriots today. We've got Danny Black, who is a former Braves and Orioles employee, as well as currently doing sports card brokering and consulting. So Danny, welcome to the show. And then of course, John Newman, down below, Sports Card Nation fame. Fame's probably tough, but look, you get to see the three ugliest guys in the hobby today. You're lucky. So John, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me. I did go to a Braves and Orioles game once, and so I have that in common with Danny right there. And the more interactive you make the show call in, the less you get me talking. So there's just some incentive. Right.
Boy, that's please, guys, call in, please. No, or link in. It's probably better to say, because they're not calling anything; they're just linking it, like link into the show. That's probably better. But look, we have a very special question to ask. I mean, this is super important stuff for the hobby. This morning, when Danny got on the stream prior to the show, he was eating a Pop-Tart, one of my favorite snacks in the entire world. Let's start with John. I know you don't eat them now, but when you were a kid, what are your three favorite Pop-Tart flavors to go for?
Raspberry, which is not always easy to find, cherry, and the chocolate.
Okay, those are none of my three. So Danny, go ahead. That's good.
Listen, that's probably why I don't eat them anymore.
Okay, so I'm a classic Pop-Tart guy. So number one for me has to be frosted brown sugar cinnamon. I actually am a frosted cherry lover. I know a lot of people go to the other fruits. To me, the frosted cherry is the right amount of sugar on top, just for that little bit of kick. And then I'm a chocolate fudge Pop-Tart guy, but that's more of a dessert Pop-Tart. That's not a breakfast Pop-Tart. I think every Pop-Tart flavor has its time of day. But what's really amazing is Pop-Tarts actually has about 40 flavors, and they do them in limited edition. So if you want to go out today, you can get your haunted frosted chocolate Pop-Tarts for the season.
Interesting. I pretty much am a two Pop-Tart guy. Either do the frosted strawberry or the brown sugar and cinnamon. And I will eat them either. There are times I really like them to be toasted and warm and kind of soft, that they're just amazing. And times I'll eat them raw, have no problem. I can go either way. I can go both ways. That's what she said.
Well, now the truth is out. So God bless you. Good for you. You can also stack these things. I'm sure people already know that, but you can put two flavors and
what do you mean?
Sandwich.
I've never stacked Pop-Tarts.
This guy, foul five ball with 3 L's. So all Pop-Tarts are horrible. Man, that's depressing.
Okay. If you're going to come with a comment like that, I want to counter snack. Tell me what your breakfast snack is. Don't make fun of my Pop-Tart. I want to hear what you're eating in the morning.
People tune in to hear about sports cards, and we're talking about Pop-Tarts on the inaugural episode on this channel. That's great. That's exactly what people tuned in for.
I'm in Vegas, so.
Well, Pop is probably going to make a Pop-Tart card for the Allen and Ginter subset. So there is a sort of a.
You could have a subset favorite snacks card in Allen and Ginter, and Pop-Tarts would be one of them.
It sounds like an NFT.
Well, Danny, you are in Las Vegas, planning on attending the industry summit this year, and that's kind of the title of the show. We got a couple of topics we're going to share with you guys. Again, if you want to ask questions in the comments, please do. If you want to join the show by linking in, the link's in the chat. I'll put it there again now that we got a bunch more people in the room. Really appreciate everybody tuning in. the industry summit, Danny, is something I went last year, just to the card show part of it. We actually didn't attend the summit because it was sold out. Sounds like, again, that's the problem this year. Tell me what you think, and then I'll ask John the same question. What is the industry summit for? What's its purpose?
I think I misunderstood it last year, or I probably would have come out here. Now I understand it to really be a business to business networking conference. I think the card show is just a little bit of icing on the side. It doesn't seem to really draw people from far just for the card show. The summit, which is great for the hobby, because the national, there's a corporate presence, but it's not business to business networking. It's a lot of business to consumer. You're pitching your product, you're selling whatever you are. The business to business is nice to talk to people that we work with, that behind the scenes. The trouble is they just don't let everybody in, so it self defeats itself.
Yeah, it's interesting that they cap the attendance. I do have to give a shout out here. Silver Jackify is the man. I agree. Joe is awesome. So thank you. By the way, Skippy62Able has over 1 million subscribers on his YouTube channel, just so you know. That's a heavy hitter in the YouTube world. But why would they cap the attendance? It makes no sense. I mean, wouldn't you want as many people? Wouldn't you want to sell as many tickets as you could, make it a kind of go-to event? And if you go, nope, sorry, doors are closed, that seems very exclusive and just a bad vibe.
Well, especially they sell out so early. So anybody, the industry is shifting so quickly. Any newer companies or somebody who changes jobs that needs a ticket is just shut out completely for an entire year. So you're right, Mike, you're 100% correct. You lose half the purpose of the networking when you shut people out. So it's a shame, because I've heard there's a waiting list of 100 people. I don't know that 100 more people at a conference center or a hotel this size would be a problem, and that they charge a very good premium for the tickets.
Yeah, go ahead, John. And it's been almost 7 minutes, and all you've talked about is Pop-Tart. So let's get your opinion.
I know what's going on in the world. It's crazy. I think, why do you limit admission? I'm not saying I agree with that, but you do it because it creates more of a buzz or more of a demand. Hey, I got to get in, so I'm not on the outside looking in, right? FOMO. I think that's really why they do it. This event has changed. I know 4 years ago I was getting like an email a day about, hey, come to the industry summit, sign up here, buy your ticket here. I get that, but instead of getting it every day, I get one, and it's like, hey, sign up early, like Danny just said, or you're not getting in. And I think they're doing that obviously on purpose to create a buzz, like I got to be on the inside and not the outside.
Here's a comment.
Sorry.
There's a comment here from Abel. There was excitement last year for the card show. Again, it was the inaugural card show part of it, which I attended last year. But after it ended, it was too high end, yada, yada. This year, no one's talking about it. I've talked to people that have been at the show yesterday. They were at the show yesterday. Crickets is what they said. It was incredibly low attendance, and not surprising, because as where is it? Here, wrong comment. There's a show, big Las Vegas card show next week. So I've long been a advocate of trying to spread these major hobby events out. I think the more you condense them, it just hurts, period. Like, it takes away from both. You dilute your audience, and I don't think that's a good thing for the hobby. So having card shows back-to-back weeks, not a great idea. But go ahead, Danny, with your point.
Well, I was also going to say that, if we, the hobby, the companies in the hobby, if the goal is for everybody to grow, you would think that, to accelerate that and have more people in the room would be a positive. I think John's right on the FOMO, but I don't think we're talking a ton of people that would make a big difference. I mean, the reality of it is there's not a real long list of people in this hobby that would be in a B2B conference. So I'm really surprised that certain people, and they have a list on their website, and if you go down, you can see who's not on the list. And that to me is as surprising as anything, because
Well, let's pull it up.
Yeah, a lot of people who help grow the hobby are not on there.
Yeah, I mean, looking at this list, it's a lot of the who's who guys. You got a lot of breakers, you got fanatics, of course. But what's interesting, and we noticed this before the show, we were looking through the list, kind of thinking about who we wanted to talk about. And the reality is the only Beckett and Tag, there's no SGC, there's no PSA. If Beckett really, is wanting to make this an industry summit and they're not considered part of the industry, that's a little shady to me. Or just seems not completely the whole industry, right? It's just parts of the industry summit is what they should call it.
And did I miss it, or are there a lot of auction houses missing? Maybe I missed it.
Yeah, there wasn't there. I don't think I saw any auction houses.
Yeah, I'm
Danny,
looking.
Mike.
I don't. Bunch of breakers.
A lot of new companies. Some I've never even heard of, quite frankly.
Well, John, to speak to that point, is part of the industry summit, and maybe I should have answered this at the beginning, for the newer and younger companies to expose themselves to the hobby.
I think it's like you said, it's a B2B, it's a network event. Hey, here's what we're doing, here's what we're bringing to the table. We're new, but we're going to do it better than the folks that are already doing it. We're going to bring this element to. I think that's what it's for. We talked about PSA and SGC not being there. I don't think that's by accident, but I mean, especially on PSA's part, like, I guess a company has to weigh whether is this advantageous for us to be here. Like, are we gonna? Is the risk worth? I don't want to say risk, but is the cost going to be worth the reward of what it's going to cost us to our presence there? Are we going to get any ROI on that? Or I'm sure in PSA's case, they're like, we're doing fine. We don't need to be at the industry summit. But for maybe for another company, that question's not as cut and dry.
Well, this is a push or a pull. Is it on the industry summit to pull in all the companies in the industry to get them together for the best B2B it can be? Or is this about, the companies that want to be there trying to get in, and, and one's a push and one's a pull? And I think a real B2B summit, you should be pulling these companies in, find these startups, find these great, ideas that are out there. Not everybody's going to be fanatics, and that's okay. But there's some real good young companies out there that should get exposure.
And like Mike said,
real quick,
and Rex went. I believe Rex went to it last year, so I don't know if he's able to. He wants to call in and talk about his personal experience. I know he was posting some of the sessions he sit on that he was said were very good, but like Mike said, it's called the industry summit, right? But are we letting everyone in? Can you call it that and sort of be inclusive at the same time? That's a question in itself.
Logan makes a good point. I mean, does PSA really need to be there? Do they need to increase their profile in the industry? Probably not, right?
Well, is it a relationship management thing? Should they be here? But I know a lot of their big submitters are actually here, and I wonder if not being here what does that say to the hobby? I guess does it come off as dispassionate, or does it come off as they don't care about the summit?
The second one, I would say, would be they're just like, yeah, whatever. We've got enough events that we're doing. Again, the hobby calendar is pretty packed. I mean, there's a lot of things going on, a lot of shows happening. You can't be everywhere, right?
But there's one business to business, and
right.
That's my point. If you're going to put on the only one, it's not like we're talking about card shows where there's a regional show that some cities, like you said, Dallas has them every couple of months. I mean, this is the one shot. To me, if you're going to fly cross country like I did, It's at a big resort. There's plenty of space. We should be introducing young, bright talent in the hobby that can't get in, maybe to some of these senior companies. Where does the best talent come from?
And listen, there's probably people attending the summit that are frankly there because they don't want to not be there, right? It's that FOMO, right? And here's another, we've the hobby is a copycat industry, right? We've seen a lot of people just replicate things, whether it be in breaking content, all that stuff. Are we going to have well, I guess you could say the Mint Collective is sort of their own summit, right? Are we going to see other companies do their own summits, maybe on the East Coast, and that sort of thing? I know the Mint Collective was also in Vegas, but are we going to see an East Coast summit in another company? Maybe PSA does their own, hobby summit, or I'm just using them as an example because we talked about it. Well, who knows who else? I know Tops used to do their own. I believe it was in Hawaii as well. So we may be talking about 3 or 4 different summit-like kind of events. I think there's 2 if you want to count the Mint Collective, the National. You can just call a Grand Summit, if you will, not put it in the same category, obviously, and that sort of thing.
Well, somebody asked about topics. I'm gonna show this is just ironic. By the way, they have a website. Just put in it's called theindustrysummit.com. The schedule of events. This is Monday. Everything starts kind of tomorrow or Monday for the summit. There's a few Sunday evening things, but I love how breakfast is sponsored by PWCC. So that's likely an altered breakfast or trim. So I don't know if you want to go to that.
It's a regular
listen, the Pop-Tarts are going to be cut off on the corners.
Right.
No, it's a regular breakfast, just 20% added on top.
Right. Then you've got Johnny Bench is the keynote speaker. That's actually pretty cool. They have it broken down into 15 minutes.
You don't find that weird for a B2B conference?
Weird, maybe. What's the point? But it's just cool.
Yeah. No, I like Johnny Bench, but of all the people to speak to the industry, is Johnny Bench really the leader of the hobby?
Right. Hey, Dr. Jim's going to be there, member of the Hobby Hotline crew. He'll be there on Monday doing a discussion, apparently. You got Fanatics is leading a panel. That'll be interesting. There's supposed to be some, by the way, major industry news dropping tomorrow is what I have heard, that a company that's named after a sandwich is going to be bought officially that's going to be announced tomorrow. Time will tell if that actually happens, but that's what I'm hearing.
John, didn't you and I talk about that at some point in Atlantic City? Was it on?
Yeah, I thought we were going to get that news there. That didn't happen, and then it's just been rumbling all along. It's just, when does the quake actually happen and the ground open up? Like Mike said that might be tomorrow. I'm also hearing, though, Mike, and I'm sure you guys maybe have. I'm hearing conflicting reports on what that news is actually going to bring us. I'm hearing not an acquisition, but more of a partnership where there's not money exchanging hands, but they're just going to coincide together, which is different than the Fanatics and Tops, which was a straight out acquisition. This is reportedly, reportedly, I got to preface it with those words. That I've heard this is not going to be an acquisition, but more of an agreement to sort of work in partnership, hand in hand. Well, have you heard that?
John, not to spread rumors, but I heard that it's going to be a different arrangement until Fanatics takes the license over, and then the relationship could change at that point.
Okay.
That they're not going to do what they did to Tops, which is take full control of the license now. Like you said, that there will be some sort of partnership, but that is rumor.
got to say thank you to Golden Slumber. We're international because we got some Canadian dollars coming in on the super chat. Thank you very much. Of course, Johnny Bench is the leading representative of the hobby. It's funny. I look at this schedule and I'm like, this evening pool. Like, I would love to be at this poolside. Like, it'd be a fly on the wall and see all these amazingly, well sculpted hobby individuals in thongs and
and me.
Oh my gosh, that would.
I've got my Speedo ready. I've got my floaty wings.
Oh my gosh, that would be so awesome.
I'll send pictures. We'll post it on Bench Clear.
So yeah, I mean, it's just a bunch of round tables and how to run an LCS and all kinds of different stuff. I mean, the actual event slash topics aren't terrible. A lot of it's kind of brick to the forehead stuff, though, right?
No, but Mike, who's the audience and are they in the room? That's
right.
part of my concern. If you're talking to LCSs, how many of them can actually go?
Right. And if they can go, don't they already, like, my point is it needs to be open. Like, let the public come. The public's the one that needs to learn these things, not professionals in the hobby, right? Can you obviously get some information from different people? Sure. And maybe some tips and tricks, but like you just said, Danny, what percent of the hobby shop owners are going to be there? 1%? I mean, maybe.
And this would be easy to stream for people who can't come. I mean, if you really want to grow the hobby, that would be a great promotional idea for the people putting it on. You build a base, people all over the world can watch. Like you said, Mike, people can learn who are not insiders, and people who want to network and come here can still be here, and it's still nice to be in the room. But this should be streamed the more I think about it.
This is a brilliant point. What if you had the week before the national, you do an industry summit type thing, and then the week of the national is the card show, or vice versa, card show. Then I just think maybe that's a long time to get someone to come to a place. 2 weeks straight is a lot, right? That's probably it.
Well, piggybacking off that comment, it's a great comment by Baseball Hall of Fames and autographs. I did a show, shameless plug, but I have a point here, on Sports Card Nation with Dr. Jim, who's been to every national. And one of the questions I asked him is, what do you want to see at the national that's not being done, whether it's been done before or never been done? And he didn't hesitate. He goes, we need to bring the panels back. And so when I read that comment, I immediately thought of Dr. Jim saying, hey, we need to bring this back to the national. So there you go. And Rex, a question for Rex, who went to last year's summit. We're talking about streaming, like getting that word out to the right people, especially like how to be a successful LCS when there's 1%, like Mike said there. Rex, do you know if they stream these panels, or do they post them on YouTube maybe like a week after? If you can type in there, or anyone for that matter.
To me, I think one of the challenges, just speaking from somebody who has to prep for some of this stuff, is there's two issues. The amount of work for some of these companies that goes into the preparation, it can literally be months leading up to it. And then there's a real issue with cash flow for some of these companies. I mean, it's a big expense by the time you put together the booth, the travel, the hotels, and there's a real liquidity issue even for some of the bigger companies to throw that all at once.
Now, that's a great point. And it's funny, as I'm saying what I was saying, it's like, oh, I get that. I totally get that. I'm trying to find Catherine's comment from earlier, or is that the one you wanted me to talk about, John?
Yeah, because prepping for the national is insane.
Yeah. Totally get that. And that now that I'm thinking through that, yeah, that would be a really bad idea.
Did you guys walk the floor of the national on setup day?
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's the end of it. And look how crazy that day is.
Right.
How many people at every company are scrambling?
No doubt. When you say panels, John, that Dr. Beckett was talking about, What do you mean by that? Bring back the
Well,
panel.
I think what he meant is like sessions, like kind of what's happening at the summit. I think even I'd have to go back and re-listen to, but I believe he mentioned kind of bringing some of what the summit does now back to the Nationals. They used to do that. The early Nationals used to have like sessions on informative stuff. Heck, they even had a softball game, which I would support bringing back because they still play. But so I think stuff like what the summit's doing, how to operate the successful LCS, some of the newer technologies that we're seeing in the hobby, kind of speaking on those, content creation panels, definitely like to see that. I know they do that on the main stage a little bit, but I think all three of us can agree here. We've all been up there on the main stage. 80% of the main stage is what? Breaking, right? Which they did a kids break, which I thought was great. But breaking is just all over the place. Like, do we really need to use the main stage for another break? I know breakers right now are like printing a picture of me and putting it on their dartboards and have at it. But and breaking, listen, I've said breaking saved the hobby. I'm not,
But John,
do we
does that separate the corporate from everybody else? I mean, that's the question. Are we going to start going to more education for the public? Are we trying to work in a B2B? Or, the breakers are almost their whole part of the room now at the National. I mean, is that even connected to, to, like you said, a real education that Dr. Beckett's talking about? And Mike, to your point earlier, you have more people at the National, the local card shops, and people who could go to some of those. So maybe that part is a positive for at least the education component.
I would love to see a lot more either well advertised sessions on the main stage that people, how do you, I guess if you get the little thing every day and who's going to be on the main stage, but that could be a wonderful educational tool for people to discover new things about the hobby, whether it's technology or content creators or, tips and tricks on all kinds of fronts. Vintage, modern, grading, you name it. I can just think of I could fill up the schedule in about 10 minutes if you give me a piece of paper and a pen, and that I know would help all the people that are actually attending the National be better hobbyists.
Well, and to John's point, if we're bringing more people into the hobby and you can have younger people come in, more diversity, the B2B feels like a little bit more of the old boys network side of the hobby. And I think, when you're looking for younger, creative people doing great content, there's just a lot of up and comers out there that get no exposure, that this would be a real opportunity.
They want to see some cards. Anybody got any card show?
Piggybacking off Mike's comment too, I think these panels, like he just said, need to be scheduled, organized. There should be a thing in the program itself with these events that are happening at these times, and not only in print, but how about the PA at the National saying, "Hey, everybody, at 1:00 on the main stage, we're doing a LCS tips panel." Because card shop owners are what, and I'm just using that as an example, right?
Well, they do those announcements for the Sandlot autographs. They can certainly do it for that.
Yeah, announce what the panel. But I also wonder if some of that is the dealers who set up at the show, especially the longtime ones that set up at every National, don't want stuff driving people away from spending money on the floor for an hour or two. Are they saying, listen, you do the main stage, but you don't need to we don't draw people away from my table. I wonder if there's an element of that.
That feels very short-sighted for the hobby to feel that way.
I also feel like you could do it on Thursday and not pull away from the main part, and people who, want to spend a whole day, like I do today, Mike, with these, the next couple of days with some really good speakers and some good education, give one full day. I would go for a full day just to listen.
So we're going to switch gears real quick because we're going to change topics, but
I'm grabbing my shirt with baseball cards real quick because
I love the idea that Paige had just to take this is halftime. The show's an hour long, and so I have a full set of these 59 Fleer Ted Williams. They're great cards if you just want to pick up a playing days Ted Williams. He retired after the 1960 season. I love this one because he's got this giant Marlin. Like there's all these weird cards chronicling Ted Williams' history. It's an 80 card set. You can go buy them pretty cheap, and they're just kind of cool. Go check them out and see what you like. But I literally have the whole set here, including the super short print, which is a PSA right now, getting graded. John, you got anything cool to show?
Yeah, I got something. I got this one the last time I was in Dallas. I got it. It's the last thing I bought, and the guy had it. And I'm not going to lie to you. I paid $20 for this thing, which is a steal.
I'm glad you're glad to us. That's good.
It's a graded exhibit. It's Pee Wee Reese, and he signed it. Let me see if you can see it.
That's cool.
It says to John, best wishes, Pee Wee Reese. It's PSA, mint 9 on the auto, and it's a real exhibit, as you can tell by the back. And I just thought, man, it happens to have my name on it. Obviously, he didn't sign it to me, but I'm a big Brooklyn Dodger guy, and for $20. I think that would qualify as a steal.
First time viewer, first time listener. Is this about cards? Yeah. Yes.
Well, actually, John, you and I were talking trade before we started. I want to finish this out. So I PC the Bill Ripken F-Face error card, which is so famous, and a lot of people don't know there's a lot of variations. So I casually try to pick them up when I'm around, but I found out this morning that my good friend Mr. Newman has some laying around. So
they're not laying around. It's not like I'm stepping on them, but
I know they're on your wall. And so what is a fair trade for an 89 error card that everybody just has a good laugh at?
I don't even know. It's funny because I don't even price them because they're not in my show inventory. They're somewhere in that purgatory area. They're not even necessarily in my PC, if you will, and they're not in my show inventory. They're somewhere in between where I haven't decided really what I'm doing with them yet. So that's for me. It's what do the comps say? No, I'm just kidding. But for me, I don't even like market them. Like I don't even advertise them. I don't bring them to the shows. It only came up because you mentioned it. Quite frankly.
Well, there's so many junk wax collections. I think a lot of us see there's so few cards in those era that really excite me or make me smile. Outside of an 89 Griffey and a 10, I think Bill Ripken's up there.
Yeah, that's set in general. How about the Randy Johnson with the Marlboro sign, behind? I mean, it's funny because I have some sealed 89 cello packs that I list on eBay, and I've never, the last year and a half, it's every week I at least sell 10 of those. I'm sure people are not only trying to pull a Griffey, but a Randy Johnson version, which one, and the Billy Ripken as well. So
the funny thing is, I actually think it's an ugly card. Somebody just asked about the variations. Real quick, once Fleer caught that there was a cuss word on the card, there's about 7 different ways they tried to cover it up and to take the value out of the card because people were buying them like crazy. And there's some conspiracy theory about maybe Fleer printed for that reason, but they literally put a notch in some of the cards to try to take the value out of it. And that's called a saw cut. So if you ever hear about a saw cut card, somebody asked, that's what it was. And Fleer did put them out like that.
All right, we're going to switch topics now. We're about halfway through. By the way, if you're listening, again, this is the debut episode here on Bench Clear Media with Hobby Hotline. If you want to catch other Hobby Hotlines, there's a Tuesday night show. It's done live as well. That's on the Hobby Hotline channel. The link will be down below, but it's easy to find if you just search Hobby Hotline on YouTube or Facebook or wherever you're listening. Hey, if you're also listening, appreciate it. Hit a button. I don't care if it's the thumbs up or the thumbs down. Give us some feedback on what you think about the show. We'd really appreciate it. It's just we're doing this for the first time here on Bench Clear. It'll be here every Saturday, 10 a.m. Central, 11 a.m. Eastern. Hope you can join us every week. We have different people every week. It won't be me, Danny, and John every week. In fact,
thank God, and you can thank God for that.
yeah,
So.
no doubt. But we have a great panel of people that all participate in Hobby Hotline, and so again, would love you to check it out every week. The next topic I want to talk about, I'm going to preface all this, Danny and John, and let you guys and the people in the chat chime in on this. We just finished the third quarter. We're now in October, which is really weird to say, by the way. But the economy in general, the stock market, inflation, there's a lot of things going on financially that I think has already affected the hobby, and I think it will continue to be a bigger and bigger deal. And the thing I think about is what I call the wealth effect. And the wealth effect is simply when you get on your 401k. Like I just went this morning and looked at kind of where my investments were for the year, and it's bad, and I think as more and more people kind of analyze their situation, assess where they are financially and what they're having to spend on all kinds of things in the world, whether it be gas or milk or eggs or lumber, you name it, everything's more expensive. They're going to start going, maybe I should start making some spending changes, some spending decisions that are different than what I've been doing, because we also have this tendency to have recency bias where we think whatever's happened most recently is going to continue. So it's been bad for 9 months. That's enough to make people think, well, it's never going to get any better again. And I think that we're going to see the hobby really take a hit in terms of what people are willing to spend on their discretionary incomes being eaten away through inflation. They are looking at their statements and going, oh crap, my 401k is now a 201k. And that matters. We think the psychological part of the hobby is irrelevant, and it's just not. People make decisions all the time based on their emotions. And so that's what I want to spend the rest of our time talking about is the different aspects of that, what you guys think, maybe some questions from the people watching. Danny, you want to start and kind of give your thoughts on that idea?
Yeah, I actually think it's interesting. I think in some ways it's the reverse of the pandemic effect. And I think when, Mike, you just said you were looking at your investments and how far they're down. So if you're going into an auction online to bid for a card, maybe you don't go a dollar higher. Maybe you are a little bit more conservative on bidding on that card. Because that's just in the back of your mind. Hey, all this money that I had, on paper is just not there right now. So I think you have a lot of people that, whether it's a physical budget that they physically have less money to spend on discretionary items, or if it's a perceived value of the economy, I think there's definitely a mental state there. But I think it was the same thing, the reverse during the pandemic. Everybody, was up. Everybody thought it was easy money. Everybody thought they were making money on every base card. And I see so many people now at the shows trying to sell their inventory. And I think that's the mentality you're talking about. They're just trying to get stuff out of it. They're scared.
Not only trying to sell their inventory, Danny, but sell it at price levels, from 6 months ago, 12 months ago, even a year and a half ago. And we're not there, like Mike just pointed out. We're not in those times anymore. I too looked like, matter of fact, yesterday at my 401k. And thanks, Mike, for bringing up a bad memory. But yeah, they're down, right? Certain things are down, and then we're seeing other things increase. Food, energy bills, water bill even went up, which is traditionally very cheap, at least here in New York. And yeah, it's going to affect people's bottom line. There's no way it can't. I've talked about it on my show, and I get every once in a while. I'll get a DM or an email and say, "Well, John, you're saying that the card market's kind of come down and reset, but look at these high valued auctions setting records." And that's a simple answer, right? The people that are buying those $12.6 million manuals and cards in that stratosphere, the stuff going on in real time is affecting them less than it's affecting the three of us on the screen and probably everybody in the chat room, or most everybody in the chat room. So not a great comparison to me.
Yeah, I don't think anybody who's buying that mantle was checking their Robinhood, numbers right before they placed a bid. Uh, but here's the question: is it affecting all parts of the industry the same, or is it more? Is it hitting modern harder than vintage, or memorabilia differently than cards?
Surely
I
there's
don't know.
Go ahead, John.
I was just going to say, and I was going to say, I don't know if Mike will agree. I think that the softening has really been on the modern and ultra modern type. But Mike was on the show and he talked about even a lot of vintage has come down. Not everything, but I think the percentage rates. I think Card Ladder even just did a thing they put out where the vintage has still remained the strongest segment of the hobby, and I think there's obvious reasons why that is.
Well, all that means is it's lost less, right? I mean,
Yeah.
let's say vintage is down 20% on average. Not every card, not every grade. You can't say it's completely universal. However, the ultra modern market might be down 50% overall, right? So it's all of it's. I don't even want to say it's bad. As a collector, I don't care. In fact, I welcome prices coming back down because I want to pick up more cards. I'm in the accumulation phase of my hobbying, not in the liquidation phase and or selling phase. And so I love it. I just, that people don't like people to say that because it's bad for the hobby, And look, I have my own, it's my personal, my hobby is I'm buying cards, I'm collecting cards. I'm a long-term holder of cards. So the cheaper I'd buy every card for $1, you can't discount value. You can't discount the money that's involved here. I'm not trying to say it's not it's not important, but it's less important to me right now. It'll be important to me later when I'm ready to, get rid of my collection, or if I pass away and my wife has to take care of all of it and all that kind of stuff. I want it to be at the peak then, right? It doesn't have to be at the peak now. And that's what I try to tell my clients too. If you're investing in anything, it's like, when do you need the money? 20 years? What do you stop? This is going to happen, it's true. There's so many parallels between, traditional assets and the hobby, right? And Danny's laughing because he knows this is so true, that there's ups and downs. It's a roller coaster all the time. And what ends up happening is, even where we're at today in the hobby, especially on the vintage side, which is where I pay the most attention, we're still way above where we were 3 years ago. It's come back from the peak, no doubt. And that's true of the stock market. We're off the peak, but we're still not, if you look at your account over 2 years, you're still positive. As bad of a year as it's been in any investment, most likely you're still positive. And so having that long-term perspective in everything is super important. And I think we get away from it in our new hobby, in the new hobby of flipping and churning and bringing stuff in and getting it out. And I don't necessarily like that. And he's saying I'm in the vast minority wishing for values to continue declining. Not in my circle. I'm in the majority in the circle that I run in. Maybe that's not a representative of the entire hobby. I get it. But all of us, it's private chats like, oh man, you see it? It's awesome. Like, all the stuff I get personally are, let's go. Keep going.
Mike, can I rephrase your language? I'm not happy the prices are going down. I'm happy that the over premium that was on the last couple of years is being removed. If you look at prices before, the pandemic, I mean, they were still rising. I mean, there have been consistent gains, specifically on vintage, for years and years and years. Just because you had a quick bubble and they're coming down, that line is still moving up. So, you and I talk offline, probably more data and financial analysis than people find interesting on cards. But I don't think we're rooting for the prices of cards to bottom out. I think we're just rooting for them to get more affordable so we can collect what we like. I understand that some people make a business flipping and lower dollar cards, and I certainly understand the business side. But if you're just collecting to own, it does allow you to enjoy your hobby more.
It's simple economics, right, guys? I'm a dealer, so I set up at shows, right? My show inventory I hope goes up in price. When I want to buy something, I want to buy it at the lowest price I can, and I don't think you have to apologize in either case. I love this comment from I Love Cardboard, and I'll paraphrase. It's a little longer, but they say I'm spending the same amount on the hobby, but I'm just making wiser and more focused choices on what those purchases are. I think that a lot of people are probably using that mantra now more than previous, when stimulus checks were being mailed to mailboxes, and there was more money and less inflation and less uh, increases on everyday bills and expenses. Now that those days are here, if you are spending the same, like I Love Cardboard says, you definitely need to be more laser focused on, hey, what am I buying? Like they said, I'm not buying packs as much. I'm buying Hall of Famer cards that I actually want, and that's sort of where I'm at with my PC is Hall of Fame graded rookies.
Danny,
John,
let me
I was
make a
going to say,
point, Danny. Sorry. I think the part of the hobby that's going to get hit the most is the breaking world, because when you have lower discretionary income, do you want to trade an unknown for a known probably every time? And so the unknown of what a break might get you versus they said, buying cards I want of proven players or whatever, you kind of singles, just going out and buying the cards you want instead of taking the flyer on spending money you really don't have to spend on a potential break. I think they're going to get just creamed. Danny, what do you think? Go ahead and make it.
Actually, same comment, different side of the coin. I was going to say I'm seeing less prospecting values going through the moon. I think the Jason Dominguez was probably the poster boy of pandemic prospecting. So I think even though people are still prospecting, they're just not paying those exorbitant prices. And to your point, a lot of the breaks are modern product. A lot of the breaks are chasing the newest and the hottest guys and prospects. So I think it plays on both sides there. I think people do want more security.
It's funny, when we brought up this topic, the chat just blew up. I'm trying to get caught up on reading everybody's great comments. And
all right, let's go back to the industry summit then.
No, that'll.
Wait a second. If anybody has a ticket, I'm still looking.
Well, let's talk about price. Right when the demand goes up, so does the price. No, I'm just kidding.
No, but I will say I'm seeing an increase of websites or selling platforms that are selling lower end cards, set fillers, commons. I wonder if that's a burgeoning part of the industry that's going to be a result of some of this.
Well, you again, if people shift their focus on higher, I can't afford the high end. I can't do. Let me go back and do something I love. Building a vintage set, or and picking up commons here and there, and you can find a place to hobby no matter where you're at. No matter what's going on in the world. And so I think there's just people zigging and zagging around, going, okay, I can't do that anymore, but that's okay. I'll do this because it's still fun. And I see that. Danny, we had talked privately about you seeing a shift, based on the economic conditions that our world is in, shifting to physical assets like cards. Talk about that a little bit and what you've been seeing.
Yeah, well, first of all, I think it's a compliment to the hobby. A lot of people who in the past may have invested in art or wine or real estate are now looking at specifically vintage graded Hall of Fame cards as a secure asset. And Mike, to your point, if you're looking at a 20-year return and something safe to hold on to, I have clients that are educated people, that are money managers, that are saying, listen, I'm not moving all my money, but I can take, a certain percentage and I can go buy myself a 48, or 49 leaf Jackie Robinson. And that's a card you can put in a safety deposit box for 20 years, Mr. Newman.
Or leave it on your desk.
Sure. But that's the point where we're very, very educated clients of mine are making very specific financial decisions to move money into there and just get out of some of the volatility in the macroeconomic world.
We just hit 100 live viewers, so this is awesome. Thank you, everybody, for joining in. I do hope that as we continue to evolve as a hobby and we're getting more technology, which is the hobby's been way behind on the technology front for decades, right? And so we're catching up there. There's a lot of companies trying to provide tools that help collectors, but I hope that instead, what I don't want to see is people say, "Oh, this hobby," they buy a card, it goes down, they lose money, they get upset, they leave the hobby. I think we need to be more encouraging of people to evolve through the hobby. I call it, there's a life cycle of collectors, right? You kind of started it. We all start collecting the guys that we watch. As a kid, I collected Buddy Bell, Jim Sundberg, Daryl Strawberry, guys that I watched. And then I got older and I'm like, hey, I'm going to, I kind of started liking, always loved the history. I'm going to collect older guys, Hall of Famers. And, so we can evolve if you're open-minded, and I hope people do that instead of just get out, or you hear about people that leave the hobby. They left after, during the junk wax era, they got out and they're like, screw it. They got back in and they're hobbying different than they did when they were kids. Right. So there are so many outlets to enjoy this hobby if you are open-minded to it and willing to change, which is, I get it, difficult for some people. Thoughts on that, John?
Well, I think I speak, you can correct me if I'm wrong. I think I speak for all three of us here on screen and probably many in the chat room, right? I got into cards as a 7-year-old because I was a sports fan, right? I watched these guys on TV, these athletes that I admired. And then I found out they made cards of these guys. I wanted those too. I don't want to paint with a broad brush everybody, but I think a lot of the people coming into the hobby, or a good percentage of them, aren't coming in for the same reasons we did way back when. I think they're hearing, what some of these cards are setting records for, and they think that they can hit that card in a modern pack, let's say. And so I think the dollar values and some of the hype of the media that's put on the hobby, especially during the crescendo years, I think that's where you're seeing a lot of the new people get in for different reasons than maybe us three and the majority of the people in the chat room. And I think, I don't know if you want to say that's unfortunate, fortunate. I just think that's where we're at in today's social media age, especially. Wasn't around when we were younger.
Can I ask you guys a question? Do you think somebody needs to be a knowledgeable sports fan to be a collector? And do you judge people who are not as knowledgeable in sports on how they handle their cards?
I don't know who wants to go first.
I don't know. I mean, I do know I have an answer. I don't know that it would be a popular answer. But to me, it's chicken and the egg, right? Do you love sports and then collect because of that? Or do you collect and then maybe love the sport or just never care about the sport? You're only in it for the the moving and the shaking part of it. And my foundation has always been and believe, if you love sports, I'm a baseball guy. I love baseball. I've always loved the sport. I still love the sport. The cards were just a natural progression for me to enjoy it, relive the history, capture those moments on something physical, right? Uh, it makes the longevity of your stay in the hobby, if you have that foundation of loving sports, a lot more likely, right? If you're in it for the other side, if you go at it from the other direction, I think it's very easy to get discontent and just bail. That's not good.
To answer your question, Danny, can you be a collector and not be a sports fan per se? Sure. I mean, we got all these charts and analytics, right, that they're probably using. But are they real? If someone's not a sports fan and they're collecting cards, I would tend, and I could be wrong, I would contend that they're probably more looking to like sell what they're collecting or acquiring if they don't have any kind of personal attachment, whether it be a favorite team or player or sport. So are they collecting, or are they? I think most collectors are fans of either a player, a team, and a sport. Again, not 100%. I think that might be the difference. Can you collect and not be a sportsman? Sure, you can buy cards and not know what the heck you're buying, or take someone else's advice. You should buy this, and just kind of follow it almost blindly. I think, like Mike says, I think the advantage of being a fan of sports, or a fan of following sports, is, charts and graphs are nice and analytics are nice, but nothing beats watching it and seeing it firsthand, right? Because you're getting that information instantly, not necessarily the next day. And so for me, that's my background is being a sports kid, then a card collector, then working in a card store, then setting up at shows, and then opening the card store. That's been my progression, and I said, like, I have a show inventory and I have a personal collection. So I've sort of melded all those worlds into one hobby for me.
To answer my own question quickly,
John, I got to interrupt. We have our first. Sorry, Danny. Go ahead, Danny.
No. We're so honored to have a couple minutes free with a guest. I certainly defer.
Only because I'm on the clock right now that I call in. Somebody else is paying me to be here. So. Hey, so you guys are talking about collectors, right? And I'm a firm proponent of the fact that it's an industry now more than a hobby. Part of that is the fact that everything these days is, as you say, is in sound bites, right? Not too many people have grown up listening to baseball games. Not a lot of people listen to radio, baseball games, all that stuff. So it's all in like 30-second sound bites on ESPN, and that's the way the hobby is now. Everything, as you say, is instant and all that stuff. So it's just the way it is. People like me have to adapt to that, because the short term versus the long term, and that's how I feel. It's like nobody reads newspapers or box scores anymore. Bye, Mike. Thanks for coming. And hey, Norman, what's up? So it's just a different day and age now. I was at the Industry Summit Card Show yesterday, and I got in there early, and I was out within an hour, and there was more people waiting in line to sell stuff than looked like to buy stuff. Spending $10 to get in to sell. Some dude showed up with a seat from, I think, Yankee Stadium, waiting in line to buy a ticket so he can go in there and sell it. I doubt he sold it because the show's kind of a dud. But the Industry Summit, I don't know if it affects any collectors, and I don't know what you get out of it from a B2B standpoint as well. I'm sorry if you guys covered that, but I slept in today, so I didn't get the first part of the show.
John, do you have an extra ticket to the summit itself for Danny?
No, I bought a wristband for $10. I don't care what anybody, because I'll print you one up in Photoshop, Danny. All right, I'll run one over to your hotel.
John, you were not on my list of phone calls for Industry Summit tickets.
I appreciate it. Thank you. Thank you. I'm out, like I told you, Danny. I'm out front with my picket sign protesting the industry.
Well, that's where I thought we would hang out. But John, let me ask you a serious question. The card show, modern, vintage.
Well, I was surprised because last time I went to a card show in Vegas, it was 99% modern, and it was at the whatever it is, the Design Center downtown. It was probably half and half. I mean, I negotiated on a card, a 33 Gaudy Lefty Grove that I didn't buy, but it was nice to have that opportunity. There was a bunch of old stuff there. I bought a bunch of stuff from the 60s and made out pretty well on that. So it's just a small show. It's like it's a tiny show, so I don't know if any of these dealers are going to be happy with their return because they probably got charged a premium to set up there. I don't know what it was at table, but there wasn't a lot of foot traffic there yesterday morning. So, which leads me to my question: do any of these card shows think about having dynamic pricing? If there's no traffic there on a Friday at 10 a.m., why are they charging admission? If they didn't charge admission from 10 to 1, maybe they'd have a lot more traffic, right? Charge $10 for people during peak hours, what you perceive to be peak hours. And, I think that would go a long way, because I don't care about $10 to go around and look at cards for an hour, but it doesn't make any sense to have 40 customers in the room and charging them $10 each when you could have maybe 150 customers in the room that aren't getting charged anything,
Somebody was complaining recently about paying for the early access. How do you feel about that?
Yeah, that was the Philly show. That's the Philly show, which I think is silly. I mean, fortunately for me, last time I went to the Philly show, I got a pass from them, but it is silly because, Mike will tell you that the deals are in the early hours of the show, like the National, right? Where that's where the most variety is. Everything's there. All the inventory's there. Some will tell you that the last hours of the show are the best time to buy. I don't believe in the sneak preview stuff or the sneak peek stuff. I'm just wondering what the number. I don't set up at shows. I'm just wondering whether, again, dynamic pricing probably makes more sense. You'd probably get more people through the door if it was free during business hours, 10 to 3 on a Friday. The dealers would be happy. So ultimately, you're trying to make the dealers happy, right? Because they need to move product. And if nobody's there, you're not moving product.
All right, buddy. Well, I look forward to seeing you on the picket line.
I'm there. With fire trucks are coming to SWAT teams coming to John Newman's house again. Right? Gotcha. All right, I got to go. I got to do something. I got to get out of Vegas is what I need to do.
See you, John.
So to John's question, as a dealer, right? When does a promoter change the price of admission at either the next show or, in this case, being an industry summit show, the next year, based on dealers complaining, right? Where is everybody? No one showed up. I didn't do well. You got to lower the cost to get in. So that's when it happens. They'll never do it. I don't want to say never. I'm sure maybe it happens somewhere. They're never going to do it on the fly. That's for you, Mike.
I have a hard time believing that $10 is going to sway someone from going or not going. Honestly, that's just not enough. If it was $100, like the cost to go to the summit, 15, whatever I can't remember the price of it. I know what it was last year, like $1,500. Like, yeah, I'm not going to do that, but $10 feels just not important.
Yeah, but it might be where, hey, I'm not going to bring my 2 boys. I'll just go and they'll have to sit this one out. I know that sounds kind of petty and maybe cheap. Maybe I wouldn't do that. I only have 1 boy, so maybe you wouldn't do that. But someone might say, hey, I don't want to spend $30 before I even buy a card, so I'll just go. I'll pick something up for my 2 sons, if that's the case, or my son or daughter. So it might be, cost prohibitive to who goes with you or who goes with somebody. But I agree, $10 in the grand scheme of things. But I think that's might be a situation where you get less people through the door potentially.
That's a great point.
This was a hard year. My kids graduated out of the free pricing.
Yeah. Kids free is definitely always good. Guys, we are out of time. We are over our hour that this show is supposed to go. I want to thank everybody for watching, for listening. I want to thank Danny and John for being on the show with me today on the debut version of this show. We'll be back next week, next Saturday, but don't forget, Tuesday, you can go see a brand new episode of Hobby Hotline on the Hobby Hotline YouTube channel. We'll be back here a week from today here on Bench Clear Media. Thank you guys for joining. We'll see you guys soon. Keep collecting.